And now to offer further analysis into the possible impact of the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement on Africa, I have expert guests standing by. In Washington, D.C., Ephraim Nkonya, he's a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute. In Beijing, Wu Changhua, she's the chair of the China Redesign Hub. And with me here in Nairobi, Dr. Richard Munang, he's the regional Climate Change Coordinator at the United Nations Environment Program. Thank you all for joining us on the program. Dr. Munang, I'll start off with you, though, because President Donald Trump announced that the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. First, your reaction to that news.
Thank you very much, British. Very important question. The science of climate change is unequivocally clear, and the world needs more action and not less. And climate change is a global responsibility, and every nation have that responsibility to be able to act and to act so right now. So the pullout of the United States from the Paris Agreement, though disappointing, is happening at a time when the world is actually ratcheting up their actions, including Africa showing leadership. So overarchingly, despite the fact that the United States have pulled out, what the science is showing and also what countries are doing means that the world is actually taking climate change action as an opportunity and actually leveraging on actions that can be able to drive socio-economic opportunities for millions.
Right. Wu Changhua, in Beijing, your reaction to that news?
I think Paris Agreement proves to be a collective decision of the global community to tackle climate change issues, which requires collective actions. And it also symbolizes a major progress step forward of the global environmental governance. President Trump's decision to withdraw U.S. out of the Paris Agreement literally disrupting this international effort, the collective actions and decisions. And to a large extent, it's creating huge unfairness to countries in Africa, in other more vulnerable regions and countries, because Africa, if you look at Africa today, most of the countries or many of the countries in Africa are literally suffering from climate change negative impact already. This is not fair to African countries, not fair to other developing countries.
Right. Ephraim Nkonya in the U.S.
This is a decision which actually is very wrong, and it's going to be affecting the current generation and the future generation, which is the most is going to be most affected. Look, the U.S. has been a leader in the world for many things, and when the Paris Agreement came in, there was a lot of work which was done, and the Chinese person said this is a collective thing because climate change does not know borders. There is an effect, and the effect is spread worldwide. And such the investment into climate change to mitigate climate change should be a collective action. And U.S. stepping out of this is something which is very unfortunate, and is actually going to be hurting the U.S. people and the rest of the world, especially Africa, which are most affected by climate change.
Dr. Munang, the U.S. has been a leader, as Ephraim there says, has been a leader in the world in many issues here. So how much of a setback is this in international negotiations, international efforts to try and combat climate change?
The changing climate, as I started off by saying, is already here with us today. And Africa have actually shown leadership, as well as other countries like China and India and the European Union. But as we're speaking today, the Paris Agreement have been ratified by African countries, more than all the countries in other parts of the region. And currently, as we're speaking today, 37 African countries have ratified the Paris Agreement, bringing that to 68% of the continent. And it means that African countries are taking leadership because they've actually seen the opportunities that are inherent in this Paris Agreement today. And as a result of this, the leadership that is shown by Africa is an opportunity for Africa to take the center stage, especially also given the fact that the continent is blessed with abundant natural resources, especially in renewable energy, sunshine, wind, and hydropower.
Right. Wu Changhua, I just want to come back briefly to what this means for the global international efforts, though, because the Paris Agreement was seen as a triumph of global cooperation. So how big a blow is this to international efforts to tackle climate change?
It is a major blow, as reflected already from all the responses from the world since last week, because we're talking about a global challenge. We're talking about a global environmental governance. Just imagine a global governance without the world's largest economy, U.S., around the table. Is it still global? It's no longer global. So on one side, I think the U.S. president's decision or announcement withdrawing from the Paris Agreement challenges hugely how we govern our global environmental and climate change issues. On the other, I think it challenges the wisdom for countries collectively. How do we really make more efforts, put pressures, and also persuading the U.S. to come back to the table? Because without the U.S. around the table, there's no way we're going to address the global challenges like climate change.
Ephraim Nkonga, is that a blow? Is that damage to international efforts being felt in the United States?
Yeah, look, U.S., for example, between 2010 and 2016, it contributed $2.5 billion to help developing countries, poor countries, to adapt to climate change and to do the mitigation. And look, if you're investing money, you are going to look a place where you can have the highest returns. And if you invest in carbon mitigation, the investment in Africa always has the highest return. There was a very good study which was done by us, and it shows that, well, if you invest to just mitigate 1 ton of carbon, you're going to have the highest return in Africa than anywhere on earth. So under the Obama administration between 2010 and 2016, they invested about $2.5 billion. And in 2016, Obama, when he was visiting China, he also promised that he's going to invest $3 billion. So that money was going to the right place, and it was going to have the highest returns. And as such, we have to be optimistic that some people are going to have some wisdom out of this, because right. Look, yes, the government of U.S. is a government, but there are companies which are still investing, and we are still seeing they are having some commitment to continue investing in climate change mitigation.
Right, Dr. Munang, of course, you did mention earlier that Africa is already showing leadership in climate change initiatives here, though. But does this change, though, does it bring about uncertainties in other countries as well? Because the U.S. now becomes one of 3, with Syria and Nicaragua, I believe, who were not part of that accord. Does this introduce other uncertainties, or are climate change efforts still on track?
Climate change efforts, even with the entire world, 195 countries that adopted this Paris Agreement in December 2015, when the UN Environment released a report, which was called Emissions Gap Report, it shows that if every action that countries who actually sign up to this agreement were put together, the world will still be headed towards a 3.2 to a 3.4 degree, which is above the 2 degrees dangerous temperature that the world is not supposed to reach, to ensure that we're not facing the drought and floods and people submerged and the suffering, especially in the African continent. Meaning, with the US still part of the Paris Agreement, the world still needed to ratchet up the ambition, the actions. However, with the US announcing the pull out, China have stepped forward, India have stepped forward, the European Union have stepped forward, and all these are showing that it is because of the opportunities that are inherent within this Paris Agreement. And when you dovetail this within the African context, which is actually one of the most vulnerable continents in the world, right. The changing climate is providing an opportunity. And if you look at what Africa has always presented, especially during the negotiation of the Paris Agreement in the name of national determined contributions, they actually identify areas within this agriculture and energy. And this is providing an opportunity for the continent to look at how they can be able to ratchet these actions, to implement actions that can be able to unleash and address the socio-economic aspects of poverty, of food insecurity, and actually contribute to macroeconomic growth. So Africa is going to benefit as a result of putting these actions in place. Right,
Dr. Munang, we'll leave it there for the moment, but we'll take a short break for now. And when we come back, we'll have more insights into Africa and the Paris Agreement. To stay with us.